After devoting hundreds of thousands of ships to the Colchian cause, then having a large portion of those vessels turned against Betterment's mandate, Gisnell's regime had all but collapsed as soon as humanity won. That selfish despot only wanted to save his own hide. At the end of the day, after an offer of exile to an uninhabited moon, he handed over his command to the rebellion, without a fight. At this point, following the changes in allegiance mid-battle, we'd had numbers on our side. I would have liked to see Prophet Lesnell's line brought to an immediate end, but I'd settle for avoiding further losses. My return to Riss as the presumed leader would be the first time I'd been there in years, since I'd been stationed all the way out by Skalga. The future of the Arxur wouldn't be as sapient-eating monsters, beholden to basic needs and aspiring to cruelty. Assuming Secretary-General Zhao could persuade the sapient coalition to leave us be, during the upcoming convention to write the Treaty of Soul, we could start rebuilding our society into its former self. I wished at a time like this that Visith hadn't turned her back on her people. A soldier from the long-gone Morvim Charter could be a leading voice in defending defectiveness. It would be an arduous battle stretching decades to convince my people that empathy was not weakness, especially since sociopathic tendencies had been bred into our bloodlines. There will be the issue of challenges from those who see me as weak. I need to consolidate my allies, including the unsavory chief hunters I turned. The United Nations promised to get Uslif and Ilthis to stand down, though given their lust for power, I can't imagine how. I wished that I could be a part of the Sapient Coalition's activities, but the prey races weren't ready for diplomatic contact with the Arxur. These deep wounds would take generations to heal. There was nothing I could offer that would atone for my complicity, every atrocity I committed to survive. Forgiveness would never be something I deserved, for all my efforts to bring about a new dawn. Humanity had escaped the label of monstrous predators, yet obligate carnivores with our past wouldn't be immune to judgment. Felra was an unmerited blessing, the only friend I ever had, and my only outlet for my suppressed emotions. While the Dosser didn't belong in strategy meetings, I hoped to consult with her on sentimental matters in Visith's role. "Hey Siffy, how'd your conversation with Zhao go?" Felra's message came through in an instant, across the reinstated FTL networks. "I know you're going to be a great leader. You have such a big heart." I tapped my claws against the keypad. "Zhao needs to handle Uslif and Ilthis before we talk." Those two wanted a larger role, despite the obsolescence of their methodology. We cannot afford coups, infighting, and power grabs, yes? With you finding a way to feed them and not killing lots of people, I think you'll be well received. You just need to promise greatness in a way that's not keeping cattle. You did the right thing by forcing Gisnell to free all sapient captives before he left. The lab-grown meat will be fine. You know Arxur can try beef jerky now. That is not real meat, you silly rodent. You cannot even tell that human meat is meat by looking at it, because it is so processed and unnatural. That is not a dietary practice befitting a hunter. Maybe you don't realize the Greys do things boringly. Felra fired back. "I'm serious, Siffy. Your culture needs to be more fun. Fun is part of expressing yourself. I question the validity of any advice coming from you, but you'll still listen to me, because I'm that much fun. What would you do without me? Practice your sulking expression in the mirror." "Humph. I do not have to listen to your babbling. I can turn off the holopad. You don't want to do that. You must be lonely, not having Oleg and Lisa around anymore." "I am not lonely. I am relieved asterisk. No more spies and conspiracy theories. I feel bad for that poor adopted human on Skalga, who'll have to deal with Oleg's derangement again. And I'm sure you'll see enough of Lisa to tell me things I don't care about, since she transferred to Liberty's Bastion asterisk. I know. The coffee shop has been set in motion. Actually, I told her to put a drink on the menu called the Siffy. She can use food coloring to make it gray, and draw a big heart shape with the cream. I thoroughly despise you. Never contact me on this app again, Felra. Right, sure, always so grumpy. I am not grumpy, I am just tired of you. Enjoy this, because it's the last time I'll ever respond to your messages. Okay then, talk to you tomorrow. I considered deleting the Swift Pair app after the latest exchange with Felra, but settled for burying the holopad in its drawer with an exasperated tail lash. If that dosser was the best candidate to steer us down an emotional awakening, perhaps it was better if we kept our single-minded focus on war. I didn't want to be anything like that. Hopefully, the Secretary General's message, arriving any minute, would offer better prospects for the Arx's future. Unifying my people under a novel purpose was my mission, and that meant I needed rival chief hunters mollified. I intended to ditch the authoritarian name Dominion during my rule, and to lay the groundwork for a new method of government, one where the rights spelled out in the sapient coalition's founding documents were mirrored for our citizens. The herbivores needed to be convinced we didn't deserve extinction, and showing them intended reforms might give Zhao something to work with. I believed that humanity would fulfill their end of the bargain that promised to aid the rebellion following the Kolshians' fall. That might not be by sending their fleet after Gisnell's pathetic surrender, but staying the guns of their allies would be its own fight. My claw was hovering over the comm screen, and I swiped to accept when Zhao phoned. Greetings, Mr. Secretary General. From your relaxed expression, I gather that your discourse with Ilthis and Oslif went well. It did. They were given roles as chief generals, a fancy way of saying military advisors, and told that they'd need to prove themselves willing to play by humanity's rules before we'd back their leadership. That you have seniority and showed your strength the best at Arfar. We framed it as a promotion, higher than the single sector they had before. The black-haired human replied, a subtle grin on his lips. I assume that you have the officers who defected from the start under your control. They were already willing to follow you. There's an understanding, Kaisal chimed in, from where he'd been pretending not to notice my discourse with Felra. We're withdrawing from the sectors like you asked, now that the cattle are released, and the raids will stop. A few of the defectives will spearhead new colonies for the suddenly returning soldiers. Others will take regional roles as governors. The more self-serving parties have been relegated to military training. I narrowed my eyes. Yes. I suspect the sapient coalition will call for us to unconditionally rid ourselves of our military capacity, but I will not agree to that. We must be able to defend ourselves should some prey take the initiative to try to wipe us out. Also, if I acquiesce to such demands, my leadership will be viewed as weak and doomed. I'm confident that I can bargain for you to be left to your own devices, as long as you agree to isolation within Riss's 20 light-year bubble. It'll take some convincing, but after everything you've done for humanity, I promise not to undermine your future. I believe you can be an instrument to build something better. The United Nations will be here to offer guidance, as well as to help you navigate budding diplomatic relations every step of the way. I suppose that you've heard that the Yotl offered us an embassy. I hope I did not cause offense, but I have not accepted the offer. It seems unwise for herbivores to reside on Riss at this time, especially for if I cannot guarantee that diplomats wouldn't become dinner. That's why the Yotl extended that offer prior to the UN, though it's amusing that they beat us to the punch. As if we recognize the extraordinary complications that you find yourself with, you need time to sort your affairs out. We'll conduct relations virtually and directly, until you have time to train a corps of diplomatic intermediaries who can be sensitive to other races' customs. I suggest you respond to the technocracy's offer with not yet. I will. At least that means you already have one vote against wiping us out. 2. Ambassador Tava will advocate for you. I trust we can pressure Veln into giving her some independence for the treaty votes. I cannot believe that the governor lost her seat of power. She was a formidable ally on the side of humanity. Don't discount Tava, because she still is. Her choice of speakers and testimony about the Venlil's suffering was instrumental in getting the votes for gene reversal programs, including the one for omnivores. She's a woman of conviction, regardless of who is on her side. It was my firm belief that Venlil were weak, until I saw the decisions she made on my behalf and yours. You were quite lucky, out of all those indoctrinated squealers, that first contact was with someone so fortuitous. I'm sure Kaisal would see that to learn how much I respect Tava. The scrawny Arkshaw lashed his tail. I do not always agree with Izif's inclusion of weaklings, but if defectiveness saves us from living as we do now, I will back it. I do not have full trust in you humans, due to your tendency to forsake us. Twice you rebuffed my attempts to defect to Earth, yet now I have a life away from war. Acting as Izif's second, I seek peace and satiety. For people of my stature, not to be tormented. After the pure disdain Kaisal showed when first introduced to my social, empathetic companions, it was a relief that he'd come around to backing my cause. He was a solid representation of the average anti-betterment rebel. There would be many Arkshaw citizens who carried resentment, or who continued practices that humanity would view as uncivilized. Gradual progress was all that I could hope for. Tava served as a cautionary tale of how a populace could reject sharp changes in a short time frame. The fact that the average denizen would have the option to push back against demands from on high, and an accurate accounting of what happened in their government, would improve on Dominion policy. There'll still need to be enforcement of the rule of law. We need to expedite the building of meat factories and acquisition of non-sapient livestock, to guarantee that. Secretary General Zhao clasped his hands together. Well, I don't expect any serious hiccups at tomorrow's summit. You have the support of your people, judging by Kaisal's attitude. After their showing at IFA, I don't expect the betterment archetypes to go against the grain. Congratulations, Izif, on your new role and your bright future. It's been a long time coming. You risked your hide to earn it. I look forward to diplomatic relations between our planets in quiet times. Wait, Mingze. As a final matter, I seek your opinion on my new government's nomenclature, replacing the harsh tyranny associated with the old one. Dominion should be lost to time, I said. The Arkshaw Collective is my idea. I thought it a suitable name, yes. The Arkshaw Collective, it's a daring premise to live up to, but it does have a nice ring to it. It evokes that hope, that your people can work in altruistic cooperation and care for each other once more. One for all. Everything I do will be for the good of the people. What do you humans say? Lead by example. It's the only way to lead and stand for something. You seem to have discovered your emotional side just fine, without any prehistoric Arkshaw as a lighthouse. I'm proud to have worked alongside you, Izif. You proved me very wrong about your people. You proved me right about yours. Thank you for sticking up for us, after we have done our part. And thank you for defeating the conspiratorial tyrants that perpetuated this war. We couldn't have done it without you, Izif. Your fortitude and compassion has saved countless lives, both today and in generations to come. Take care of yourself out there. Enacting lasting change that'll be a fight we'll tackle for years to come. Our patience may be tested, but the end result is worth the tiring journey. Risk is free. That alone makes every risk I've taken worth it. If no future Arkshaw will endure the shame I feel for every meal I've eaten and crime I've sown, then I will fight until my dying breath. I hope you know you've succeeded. Maya's wisdom with more grace and intellect than Earth could have hoped for. Farewell, Secretary General Zhao. Good luck, my friend. I terminated the video call, allowing him to return to planning for a busy session of post-war decisions. Kaizal turned his binocular eyes to the viewport, with the glint I finally recognized as homesickness vanishing. The reds of Riss's clay masses, and the greens of forests and plains, stretched out on the viewport. I was optimistic, as we prepared for the landing that would start my reign. Though Felra would be far away, I wouldn't be alone among my people. Kaizal would require continued mentoring, and I could form a social network within the collective's fledgling bureaucracy. There was no longer an entity standing in the way of progress. The greatest benefit to Betterment's fall was that I wouldn't have to hide my true persona beneath a horrific farce any longer. This is home. It can be a place worth saving, worth fighting for. My life can be spent in pursuit of something good, not just with the purpose of staving off execution. The arrival of a second sapient predator had been the catalyst for the liberation of my entire people. Without humanity, I would have had no empathetic sapients to reach out to who would have seen me as a person. I would have had no frame of reference for what a dignified society would look like, apart from Betterment and the Federation. I would have never known that the two galactic powers were colluding to our detriment, and would have never been connected with the Yotol or the Venlo, a pair of herbivores who could act with cordiality, despite my species. This war couldn't have been won if I hadn't saved Earth from annihilation, and trusted them to defy the odds at Afar. Every encouraging moment led back to the Terrans, and our partnership to actualize a shared vision of the future. It might take decades for the wounds on all sides to heal, in any meaningful way, but the cycles of hatred could begin to dissolve today. The humans had given me hope for peace and friendship, and with Riss under my control, I never planned to let it go.